morning, everyone. It looks like finally we did it. I was a little patient, and I appreciate your patience here this morning while we worked through a little bit of technical difficulty. Nothing had changed on my end, but apparently YouTube was pitching a little bit of a hissy fit this morning. So I am excited to be able to do this live with you. I appreciate those of you that did wait around a little bit this morning to see if I could get up and functioning. Hopefully you'll come back and watch this once we are finished and when you have the opportunity. We are beginning the final house and blocks for our On Wander Lane quilt. So we're excited to be on the very end. We will meet one more time for assembly and everything like that. So we will meet again in June. I can't believe it's already halfway through the year. And we will talk about putting this all together, which means I have a lot of work on my end because I need to finish blanket stitching the final block. So I have a lot of work to do. All right. Let me get started here. All right. So this month, for those that are making the full big quilt, we are working with these 3 blocks. We will make one of each of them. And then we have our center house block. If you are making the individual wall hanging, the monthly wall hanging, you'll need 3 of each of these blocks. 3 of the hugs, 3 of the kisses, and 3 of the blocks labeled 2 hearts. We are going to get started here with our hugs block. Okay. So for me, in my world, this was a kiss. XO, so the kiss was an X and the hug was the O. Growing up, that's the way I assumed. The way that the book has it here is that the kiss is an X and the hug is an X and the kiss is an O. I don't know if it makes a difference, but just just for your reference, if you just jump in and assume, it may be backwards, or not backwards. It may be opposite of what you grew up knowing. Now, with this particular block, we have 3 fairly easy blocks this month. Not a lot of detail or little pieces to them. So our hugs block contains 2 gray fabrics and a background. And I just want to point out that if you are using the gray stripe, which is the one that we've included in the block of the month kit, you just need to watch the directional stripe. Not so much when you are cutting the fabric, because we cut this as a 3.5 inch square, but more along the lines of when we put the corner units on this particular square. Okay, so let me change out cameras here and then keep my fingers crossed that all cooperates with us. It does. Okay, so this particular unit here, let me just back up a little bit. This particular unit here, this is half of our block. Okay. Half of the block is one of each of the gray pieces. They contain 2 fold back corners that we have here. And I'm going to check one thing because this may not cooperate with us. Let me make sure that you can see all of this. So these are 3.5-inch squares, and the fold back corners that we're going to be placing in these corners are going to be 2-inch squares. Okay, you can see this. When you lay out your unit, lay out your stripes the direction that you want to go. So I would lay out your block completely, because you don't want to make both blocks the same. Okay, so if we make both of these blocks identical, when we go to rotate it to put it in the upper corner, it's not going to be right. Okay, so we want to lay out the block in the method that we plan, and we're going to apply a fold back corner, okay, into two opposite corners. Okay, so this one would go this corner, and this one is going to go in these two corners. Right sides down. You can draw a line or you can trim your square, and we will then, this should be a 3.5-inch square once your corners have been applied, and then you'll sew them together. So 2 rows together, and then sew through the middle to create your X block or your hug block that's there. So that is the important step for this particular one right here, is to make sure that you are watching this layout. Ooh, this is testing my patience here today as I am struggling, trying to pay attention to what's happening on 3 different screens because of technical issues this morning. So that will become your hug block. See, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Here, let's go here. There we go. There we go. So there is that block. The next block in our month is going to be the Kisses block. This block is fairly easy there. We have our 3.5-inch fussy cut house print in the center. We have the red and white stripe, and then we have the 4 background squares. The note again, watch the directional stripe on your red and white stripe fabric. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have them all going the same direction like you want, or whatever way you want them to go. Maybe you don't want them all to go the same way. Just pick your madness and go with it. Now, in the instructions, she has you apply the fold back corners to the long units prior to assembling it to our block. I have done this a little different. Okay. I actually sewed the block first. Okay. I have my block completely sewn first, and then I'm going to add my 4 corners. Okay. The end result will be the same. You'll still have a block that is shaped like an O. I do want to point out there is somewhat of a directionality to this background fabric. So I went ahead and drew my lines, and I folded back to preview what this corner looks like. Okay. And then I went through and I did all 4 corners so that I could make sure that, you know, they were all somewhat facing the same direction. Okay, because if I went the other way, for the most part it would be identical, but because it is symmetrical, but just pay attention to that if you are worried about something being the same or looking the same all the way around. Once you have your lines drawn or your unit trimmed using that folded corner clipper that we've been using, or any of your fold back corner trimmers, you can do. So if you're not familiar with the corner clipper, I'm going to take my corner clipper, I'm going to place it here. The corner clippers replace you needing to draw the lines. So if you know, maybe you're not the best at drawing a line, or the only pencil or pen you have has got a thicker point to it, which can also throw off your line or your 1/4 of an inch that you have. So you want to just use this little guy. I'm going to line him up so that the edge of my square is lined up with the edge of the ruler and the measurement that it is. So it's a 2-inch square. I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut off the corner. Now when I sew, I'm going to sew a 1/4 of an inch from that cut edge. Okay? And so I'm just going to line it up where I want it to be. And then once I've sewn all of these lines, or sewn all these 1/4 inch seams, I don't have to come back to the table and cut. I can go right over to the ironing board and trim. I need a new blade in that, so let's try a different cutter. Okay. Then we can head over to the machine and sew these and then fold them back. This should also measure a 6.5 inch square once you have finished sewing those seams. Okay. So that is your Kisses block. 2 hearts. The 2 hearts block is, we have an outer heart and an inside heart. Okay, an inner and an outer. Basically, we have 2 halves that are assembled. She has it done in a manner that the matching pieces are diagonal from each other, so you can see this floral is diagonal from this one. You could make it 2 halves, make these 2 halves match. It's completely up to you where you want to put these particular fabrics. So I highly suggest that you lay this out so that you get the right ones in the right location. Okay, so we're going to, one second here, I have half a block made. Okay, so there's my 1 block. This block is going to be made up of those 2 pieces and this one. This unit is going to be this piece, and I paid attention to the directionality of this vine so that when I did this fold back corner like we did earlier, I made sure it was going to travel in the same direction that I planned to put this piece. He's also going to need this piece, and we've got this piece here. Okay. This top rectangle is 2 by 3.5. It has 2 1.5 inch squares that are going to get placed in the upper corners. Okay. Again, these are fold back corners that we're doing, so I can line them up. I can take my corner clipper And trim those corners. Okay. And then I would sew that, and that would make this top unit that's here. Okay. This middle unit, this piece is going to get these two little baby 1-inch squares in the upper corner. Okay, upper corners. So, get that one out of the way. And then again, I'm going to do the fold back corner. And then once that corner's been sewn on and pressed away, I will sew it to this unit to create this rectangle. For the bottom unit here, this starts out with a half square triangle, but not a traditional half square triangle. It's only half of a half square triangle because we're going to place these two right sides together. We're going to basically draw a line and sew on that line. So we're not going to get two half square triangles out of this. We're going to draw a line, sew on that line, or use your corner trimmer. So this is an excess piece. You can also make a smaller half square triangle with it, but we're not drawing a line and then sewing a 1/4 inch from each side of that line. We're not making half square triangles like that. We only want one half square triangle. Once we make this half square triangle and we press it, he'll look like that. And then we're going to add this unit here as the fold back corner. So he'll fold back like that and create this 3-part unit that's there. Once we have those 3 units together, then we just sew them together. Oops, wrong way. This one goes first. I would sew this column together, I would sew this column together, and then sew down the middle. Okay. I personally would press these seams open, okay, and then I would also press this middle seam open. If you're not a seam press open kind of person, I would take one side and press the seams up. I would take the other side and press the seams down. That way when you put these right sides together, you can nest and match those seams to help you get a better matching point on that particular block. Okay, so that's 2 hearts. Not too terribly difficult. I think actually these blocks were the least number of pieces required and probably the quickest and simplest ones to sew together in all the last 11 months that we've been doing this. Now, next up is going to be our center. If you have a block of the month kit from us, we do have a modification in that kit. So I'm going to tell you what that is here in 1 second. You will see that A, B, and C are our 3 background fabrics that get pieced together to generate our 11.5 by 12.5 inch square. That lower pieced unit there with the peach and then the red print is digitally created. So if you want it to look like that, you will need to fussy cut all the 1.5 inch squares. And I will tell you right now that the design that they have fussy cut in there is smaller than a 1.5 inch square, so you're not really going to be able to just get one of those designs. This graphic is digitally created for those purposes, and just note that. Okay. 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 Let's take a look at this. Give me 1 second. We're going to make some changes here so I can try to get all of this in the screen at once. 1 second. There we go. Much better. Now, you will see that in my picture right here, or in mine, I actually have this piece of fabric. When we were doing these kits here this morning, not this morning, when we were doing these kits a few months ago, when it was, 1 second. When we were cutting these kits, this particular piece of fabric was out of stock and not going to be here in time for us to finish kitting. You have enough fabric in your kit to do A and B out of the same fabric. And it's really fine because if you look at the graphic, you barely see this blue behind the mailbox. Okay? Now, you probably have some of this from a previous kit, from a previous month, which you could get a piece out of it. What I've done is I cut a piece that was, 1 second, I'll tell you, 4.5 inches tall and 5.5 inches wide, and I sewed it to a piece of other fabric. And the reason I went with that measurement is because this seam here will be hidden behind that. Okay, so you just need a little rectangle, about 4.5 inches of fabric, in order to make it look like the graphic. So if you are worried or don't care for the fact that it would be sprinkles continuing this direction, pull out your scraps because you have plenty from previous months and just piece that unit in. Now I had cut this unit to the right size of unit B, and then I just sewed this to the top, and then we can trim this up to 11.5. So I'm gonna turn this around because our center block is 11.5 inches tall, 12.5 inches wide, and then we have ABC there. Okay. And then, like I said, there is your unit. If you care about the direction that these little guys are going, pay attention to when you cut your strip as to which direction that you cut your strip at. And then this little guy will get pieced down here at the bottom. But before I piece it to the bottom, I am going to iron on my hill. And that way, when I piece this into place, that will cover that raw edge, and I won't have to blanket stitch or worry about that. Okay. We're going to go over to the ironing board because it's time to put our house together. Okay. All right. Grab my book here so that I can see what I'm supposed to be doing. All right. I am going to go ahead and put my grass on, or my hill, my snowy hill. to line that up at the bottom, and I'm going to line it up left and right. Perfect. That seam is down here. You're never even going to know it's there. And we're going to go ahead and iron that in place. Okay, we'll set that to the side. We can assemble this plant. We have the house, we have a mailbox, we have a bird, and we have a bunny rabbit that all need to be assembled. So I'm going to start with this plant. Let's start on the left-hand side over here. So I'm going to get my piece. Now, in our block of the month kits, they did come pre-laser cut. If you're not working with a laser cut kit, do you have a preferred fusible that you like the best? I have always used a product called Soft Fuse, and I don't think it's being manufactured anymore. It's a super lightweight, so that as you stack multiple layers up on top of each other, they don't get thick. So I'm curious if you have a preference, what you like the best. Dig out all my little pieces over here. Find my little center heart. So here's our big heart. I know the Steam-A-Seam too, a lot of people like because it's sticky backed. So you could peel the paper off and stick it in place. I don't know, for me I like to use an applique mat, so it's not as important for things to be stuck in place necessarily. I mean, I can see it for collage quilting and stuff like that, but I do think that that sticker product on the back does make it stiffer or thicker than I like, especially if I am stacking multiple layers up on top of each other. OESD, the company that we use with embroidery, makes a product called Soft Web. I really like Soft Web. Cuts beautifully if you pre-cut your appliques with a personal electronic cutting machine. So if you use a Cricut, Cameo, anything along that lines, that Soft Web cuts really well. So does Hot Fix, which I like as well. So there's my plant. I'm just gonna quickly just set my pieces there, and we'll kind of let that cool for a minute. And then we're going to move to the right here, and we're going to build our house. Goodness, I'll get my words together yet today. Technical difficulties threw me all off this morning. Moving on to my house, I'm gonna start with the body of the house here. We have a roof, and attached to the roof is the front stoop, and then attached to the house is the chimney. Before I put my roof down, I'm gonna goodness gracious. Get my chimney in place because it goes under the roof. And then the front stoop, I'm going to overlap it just slightly. So that it will stick. And then I'm going to just give that a quick little press. Our front door will go there, and then we have our, what's that, 5 windows. Which we'll take the paper out here in a second and measure for placement. These windows don't have any window panes in them, so there's no need to do any extra stitching or hand embroidery, which is always a good thing. Just going to slide this out. Now, from the base of my house to the top of my windows is about 2 3/8, and my first window is about 3/8 of an inch from this edge, and then it's about 3/8 of an inch between each window. Okay, so I'm just going to take my ruler here. I'm going to go 2 3/8 up from the top. I'm going to go 3/8 over from this edge. And I'm going to put my first window. I'm just going to use a straight pin, stick that in place to hold that for me. And then 3/8 from that one, I'm going to put another one. And one more. There they are. And I'm just going to carefully set my iron down. Tap them in place. And get my door. I'm going to center my door over my stoop here. Set that in place. Okay. I'm going to work now at building my mailbox. Okay, so we're going to start in the back and work our way forward. And so we're going to start with the mailbox. But before I do that, let me clean up my mess here. Post for my mailbox. The mailbox himself looks a little funny because we have the front door of the mailbox is open. And then we have a shadow. Okay. So then we'll come up and place this on to give the mailbox some depth. Just like that. Okay. We have a heart and a flag piece. So, can't really see where the flag piece is, or where it lines up to necessarily, but you can see the heart that is on the end of the flag. Just going to tap that. And then that heart is one of the, in my laser cut kit, is one of the sprinkle fabrics, sprinkle hearts. Okay. And the other one goes up at the top. We'll get that when we get everything on the background because he's not connected to anything. So we'll stick that there. Go ahead and do my bird and my bird wing. That way they are attached to each other. And then lastly, we're going to build our bunny rabbit. Let's see. Bunny has a few pieces to him. He's got a bow around his neck, and we have shadowing in his ear. Okay. Littlest, tiniest little piece of pink that you would almost think was a piece of trash. That goes on his lower ear. Tap that in place. Then we have this little tiny necktie. There are two envelopes, okay, that go in our mailbox. I'm going to get them together as a unit and then we will attach them to the mailbox. So the back envelope is the pink color and the front envelope is the white one. Before I do that, I want to see. Okay, so that white one stands upright. They're kind of curved on the one side so that they meet up to the shadow of the mailbox. Once you get that in, I'm going to put it in my mailbox so that it comes down low enough to cover up the black shadow that's in there. And I'm going to butt it right up next to the black shadow so that you can't see the black here. And then we'll set that in place. Okay. All right, all of our individual units are together. So we're going to get out our background piece here. Ultimately, it's your choice as to where you put this, as long as you leave yourself a seam allowance. But we are just about an inch up from the bottom with our stoop, whatever that thing is called, our front porch. So I'm gonna get my house here. And looking at this, you can't see the seam here. Okay. He is about, let's see, about 3 inches from the edge over. And what did I tell you? About an inch up from the bottom. Okay. You can put this anywhere you want, and we'll probably move it around as we get to it. I'm going to get my mailbox because that's the next piece that I think this is going to be too close. So I think I'm going to move him over. Looks like the mailbox is lined up to be the same height as the house. And he looks to come over into that outside window. Okay, I'm going to slide it over just a little. I want to make sure that over here on any edge that you at least leave yourself your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I always want to make sure that I haven't cut myself short here. And then we have our bunny rabbit. And our bird. So our bird is going to kind of stand up on the mailbox, but he has legs that we need to stitch in. So we're not going to put him directly on the mailbox, but I at the picture he seems to be kind of right at the seam that we have right there. So that right there is the seam between A and B. So I have him just kind of hanging out there. My bunny rabbit, his hands are up on the mailbox. Again, I want to make sure I leave myself some space down here that I'm not going to lose any feet. And then we have our plant. Again, he's just about in line. With the bottom of the house. Just like that. He's about a quarter of an inch from the edge of the house in the scheme of things. And then we have some hearts that we are going to attach to our house. Okay. I have to find them all. We have a little red heart that is on the mailbox. One second. Lost my scissors. Okay. Each of the mail pieces has a fabric heart on it. I have it the other way. And then we have some hearts up here at the top. And somewhere I have misplaced a heart. Okay, that's coming out of the chimney. Who knows where he's gone? I'll find him as soon as I stop, but I'll locate him later. Okay. Now, once I have everything in place, we are going to iron it all in place. Okay. So I just need to take the paper off the back of these little baby hearts. There he is. Just have to get my top hearts done. But before I do that, I'm going to just go ahead and we're going to trace a heart and replace it with what is missing. So, oh, I found it. See, if you stop looking for it, it'll pop right up. He's on the floor, blending right in with the carpet. Good. I don't have to trace one now. If you did need to trace, remember you don't want to use the, one second. If you are tracing, this is just the placement pattern piece. You want to use the other pieces on the pattern, okay? There's some back here because these are mirror imaged, okay? If you trace your patterns with this, once you iron this and go to iron it to your actual fabric, you're gonna have a mirror image. Your bunny in your mailbox will be over here, not the end of the world, but just make sure that this is your placement diagram, not your applique shapes. Your applique shapes are typically going to be elsewhere on the pattern. Okay, just a note. I probably should have pointed that out like 11 months ago, but so many things you learn. All right. Or things I just assume, unfortunately, people know. All right. Just fiddle with where my lovely chimney hearts are coming from. And go ahead and set that in place. I always like to also press from the back side. This puts the iron directly next to the glue, but you don't want to press too long back here because you don't want to overheat the glue on your appliques, because then they won't stick at all no matter what you press or how much you press on it. Okay. And that is your Loveland Cottage. Isn't he just adorable? Good morning, Miss Debbie. So your Loveland Cottage, he's just so cute. Now just needs blanket stitched. The button, there is a button for the doorknob. Okay, so when you come in to do this, there is a button that goes right there on the doorknob. That you do not want to attach any of those buttons or anything to your quilt until after your quilting is finished. Okay, so I will be working on getting the quilt top assembled and quilted, and then if I don't get that done before we meet in June, we'll go over assembling and getting everything together, and then I will do another video about where all the embellishments go, all the dimensional buttons, and point out where the buttons go on the quilt for you. But you want to do that after it comes back from being quilted or after you quilt it, and we can sew those buttons on by sewing machine. You do not need to sew those buttons on by hand. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being patient with me. I do apologize for technical difficulties this morning. I'm glad everything somewhat got itself sorted out. I still have to go and do a little fixing behind the scenes over here and try to figure out what is happening or why it happened, and make sure that we're all ready for my next live here over on YouTube. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, a great rest of their week, and a great rest of the month. And I look forward to seeing you all real soon. I hope that you are working on or keeping up or just continuing steady pace, even if you're not where I'm at. Trust me, not all my blocks are blanket stitched and not all my blocks are pieced yet. So you're not the only one if you're not at this point. All right, but please do share your progress with us. I love to see your progress. We do have a Facebook group over on Facebook. If you do Facebook, it's called the MGQB Society. It's our private Facebook group. We'd love to see your progress shared there. Everybody would love to see how you're doing. and hope that you'll join in over there for all the fun that we do have. Thanks everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you real soon.